Welcome YouTube, this is Acid Roots. I've got a album review which is Double X by Mushroomhead. Now this was pretty much the mainstream album that came out for Mushroomhead. They had dropped albums earlier into the decade in the 90s and that sort of thing, but they did not really manage to get huge hits. I think it was more of an underground appeal on the rock scene. And this album kind of comprised some of the records from those, such as, what's the name of it? Such as Solitaire and Before I Die and those type songs. But it did have like a pretty huge splash, and I was glad for that just because this is a terrific metal album, but it also blends a little bit of alternative metal and rap metal in there also. It's very similar to Korn, very similar to Mudvayne, and very similar to Slipknot. And this is one of the best things about this project because it's such a terror show the whole time. It kind of takes a hold of you with a vice grip and then doesn't let go. Now, the only problem with this group is that they do not chart that much. So if you're listening to them, it's probably more based off of word of mouth or some sort of self found out about it more so than hearing it commercially. But, you know, I still appreciate this. I did review their 2014 album, and I've been trying to review this project since summer, but it gave me issues in the past, but I'm finally back to it now. And we're going to talk about one of the singles off this project. So the first single, or the one that was promoted the heaviest, was Solitaire / Unraveling. Now this sounds like a Korn song, but then it also doesn't. It's really kind of freaky. That's one of my favorite parts about it is, you know, if Korn did the kind of eerie songs like Freak on a Leash and Got the Life and Follow that, can't remember the name, the first single from Issues off of Korn's 1999 album. This one takes it a step further and just happens to be real shrill. It just is shrill, creepy sounding, and a big mess. The guitars are great on here. I'm glad that this decided to be metal and not rap, because it just it amplifies it much heavier than it already is. But Solitaire is a great one. 43 is yet another one of these said songs. And I think there's like one other one that does that. I'd probably say the wrist and Born of Desire. But there are some straight metal songs, and these can go toe to toe with some of the heaviest of the metal bands. Before I Die and Xerox are two of which that do that. And it's pretty intense. So between all that, you know, you're gonna find like 15 songs on here that are like 3 or 5 seconds or something like that, but there's actually 15 songs total, minus like 1 or 2 that are just instrumentals or just have a little bit of nonsense at the end or towards the song. Just less than 2 minutes and 30 second songs. There's really about 12 songs on here. So I would say this album, because I liked 8 out of 13 or 8 out of 12, I'm going to give it a 7. I'm trying to think of 8 out of 13. No, I'll give it an 8. I'll just say it's an 8 just because it did have some great moments, but unfortunately, it really, I mean, as much as I like this project, it just seems as if it's not going to get the attention it needs. Now, obviously, this is such a sad release for the reason why is just because, I mean, their get-ups, they are pretty, dark group. And I know how that translates, but you know, it's still, I think that they're just really about 2 or 3 shades darker than Korn. So I think if Korn could do it, they could also. But the 8 songs that I recommend to you and you should probably check out are Solitaire, 43, These Filthy Hands, Before I Die, Xeroxed, Born of Desire, The Wrist, and The New Cult King. Now, The Wrist and a couple other ones like, These Filthy Hands and Born of Desire, those are kind of haunting songs also. Those are some more scary, really freaked out songs. Xerox, Before I Die, like I said, are the metal ones. 43 and Solitaire are the ones I'd go to first to really get used to this group. And The New Cult King is kind of another hit that's on there, but that one took me the longest to get used to. So 8 out of 10, but it's going to get a 2 out of 10 social just because they didn't really have that much, it didn't get as commercial as it needed to. So can this record be topped? The answer is in terms of presentation and what they had to work with and whether or not, you know, the next album would have burnt out. I think that this actually did a really good job. I mean, in terms of like a debut or a mainstream debut, you can't get too much better, but I just feel like the songs that were aimed at commercial standpoints we needed more songs like 43 and Solitaire, because those were the ones that were going to get the most attention. But some of this is just not as immediate. It's kind of, you have to get used to them in order to like it. So the future, they dropped an album in 2014, but I think they'll be back. Subscribe for more fun.